Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is, of course, the Friday edition. Hey, it is Friday. Still slightly under the weather, but Friday always makes things better, doesn't it? Happy Friday. Welcome to today's episode of Vuka Nazo, your morning news analysis show. My name is Usihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. And do me a solid favor, will you? Find me on my website. Visit www.bigdaddyliberty.com. There, of course, you'll find all our latest content. Soon, we'll be offering some merch on the website. And of course, you can also find out how you can support the show financially there by going to our website and contributing as little as 100 to 150 Rand a month. It helps us going here on the BDL show. With that being said, how about we get straight into the news? All right, to begin in Johannesburg this morning, where in what is a surprise, I suppose, vote, the DA's speaker in the council, a one Vasco de Gama, don't ask, that really is his name, has been ousted in a motion of no confidence. Now, the motion, of course, was brought forward by the PAC and received quite a bit of support, actually, including from some of the coalition parties that are aligned with the DA in that council. Now, the piece I saw this in that actually helped break the news was on EWN, and the write-up went a bit like this. This was after a motion for his removal, that's Vasco de Gama, was tabled by the Pan-Africanist Congress, yeah, those commies, and was backed by the ANC and, of course, the EFF, red in tooth and claw. Commies, oh my goodness. The motion was tabled by PAC Councillor Utebogo Nkoko, and in doing so, said 1994 is supposed to bring us freedom and independence, he said. 2021 brought us an arrogant speaker who does not recognize the people of Johannesburg. 2022 brought a city that steals from its residents. How ironic, given that he's aligned to the ANC, but anyway. And how long should we tolerate Councillor Vasco de Gama? That's according to the words by Ukoko, who had initiated that motion, end of quote. Now, this motion, which ousted the speaker in the Johannesburg Council, of course, had a narrow majority in its support. Remember, the DA-led majority in that council has 104 seats in the council, but only 132 of those seats actually voted against the no motion confidence, which would mean the majority of the votes voted against the Gama, which would include, of course, as sources are telling me, councillors from COPE, the IFP, and even the ACDP. That is very odd bedfellows indeed, and it begs the question of these opposition parties, which of course have been touting this message of they will oust the ANC. They told us that they'll get rid of the ANC from local government elections to the national elections in 2024. They've been saying their whole mission is to build a broad coalition to get rid of the ANC. I spoke about this yesterday, where I said there's two discernible threats that are beginning to make that prospect look rather slim. And that's firstly, the opposition parties themselves internally are fractious and indeed faction-laden. We saw this, of course, yesterday in the incident that happened at the press conference being held by COPE, where its leader, Musua Lekota, as he was speaking to the media, was attacked by party members. Let me just play that clip again so that you get a quick reminder as to what I was talking about. Now, that's the first issue here. The actual opposition parties themselves seemingly fractious and fraught with internal conflict. Now, take that to the second issue clearly, which is perhaps beginning to drop people's hopes around a coalition government, is situations like these, where clearly opposition parties are struggling to work together in these coalitions. And why do I say that? Well, Johannesburg isn't the only example where the DA has been ousted rather unceremoniously, including by other opposition parties. Let me take you to Knysna, that beautiful Sleepy Hollow on the Southern Cape, where the DA there too had its mayor and deputy mayor ousted by a raggedy coalition of the EFF, the Progressive or Patriotic, Alliance, and die plaaslike besorgde inwoners. That's the PBI, which effectively carried 11 votes versus the 10 that the DA and its coalition had in ousting their mayor and installing an ANC mayor in that part of the world, and including, of course, an ANC speaker, the ANC mayor being a one Aubrey Tsengwa, who's now wearing the mayoral chain down there. Again, this does not bode well for any talks of a coalition arrangement which would provide for South Africans who are desperate to get rid of the ANC a stable form of alternative government which begins to heal and repair from the near on 30 years of ANC mismanagement, and of course a government which presents an alternative vision. It's clearly seeming as though opposition parties are in this for themselves, and until that is resolved, then for the ordinary voter, maybe they're wondering what's next. All right, in other news this morning, and indeed in depressing news in my case, insofar as the stupidity of it all, government is forging ahead with plans to create a second ESKOM, that is a government-owned energy-producing company to compete, in its words, with ESKOM version 1. The name of this new ESKOM, of course, is super creative. It's so creative, you guys. It is the most creative name ever. Guess what it's called? Generation 2. Okay. The lack of creativity aside for that name, and as bad as that name is, the idea also in and of itself is a very bad one, because I've always said this. Of course we want more electricity generation for South Africa, which of course, as you'll know, has been the sort of country that has been plagued by rolling blackouts since 2008. Of course we want more capacity, but the best way to do that should have been through the private sector, actually deregulating the energy market as much as possible, inviting the private sector to invest in building mega capacity in coal, gas, nuclear, and the like, and guaranteeing them, of course, a return in investment by deregulating the market, allowing those private sector guys to sell their electricity to municipalities directly, thereby guaranteeing, in a sense, that you would have invited the private sector to do what is absolutely required and have them do what they do best, which is to render a service efficiently without quibble. ESKOM, as a government-owned entity, has proven that relying on the government to provide this function is simply stupid stuff. Therefore, building another ESKOM is simply stupid stuff. But hey, don't take it from me. This is what the minister responsible for this portfolio, that's a one Govt Mantashe, basically said in commissioning what will be Generation 2. He basically says Generation 2 will be launched off of basically taking some assets from ESKOM, namely 3 existing coal power plants which were being decommissioned. Those 3 power plants, of course, were the Hendrina, the Groetvlei, in the Camden power stations, which of course were coal-burning power plants, which cumulatively generated about 4,800 megawatts, refurbishing them and repurposing them into gas power stations. Now, that in and of itself is not a bad idea, but still, I keep referring back to my original point. This could have been done by the private sector. It should not cost the taxpayer money to do this. But again, the state heading in this direction of rather doing it via themselves as government. So those 3 power stations will be repurposed, and part of the deal, of course, with ESKOM 2.0 will be the building and the commissioning of a new nuclear power station. Now, let me quick pause at this point. There should be red flags all over this already, especially given that the last time we had a conversation about new nuclear capacity in this country, one President Jacob Zuma was at the helm of that potential deal, and it too was fraught with secrecy and all sorts of red flags in and of itself. But this iteration of it, as per a piece in the News 24, which I'll read right now, where Mantashe, speaking on this issue, said the following. Once the proposal is approved, the government will invite engineering, procurement, construction companies into the bid, of course, and the cost of converting the plants will be determined at that point, said Maduna Ngubeni. That's actually the department's head of projects. Now, in relation to the nuclear plant, Mantashe himself said South Africa is also planning to build that 2,500 megawatt nuclear plant, he said, and the modular nuclear plant will be constructed at Duispunt in the Eastern Cape province. The minister said nuclear is another very important baseload commodity as it is very efficient and reliable, end of quote. Now again, let me repeat, he's not wrong on that particular point. The only thing I disagree with here is the insistence that all of this be channeled through the state. And why? Because anytime these politicians have been at the helm of anything insofar as creating new electricity baseload, 2 things have been the defining feature of it. Number 1, cost overruns, and overruns that take years beyond the projected time period of what was meant to be construction phase. Don't believe me? Circle back to one Kusile and Medupi coal-powered power plants to know exactly what I'm talking about. Number 2, beside the cost overrun and the time overrun, the incompetence in the build, the incompetence in the actual work. Again, Kusile and Medupi are a good example. Insofar as once Medupi was even completed, you then found out that the turbines they were using were inappropriate and were not generating the electricity required efficiently. That in and of itself requiring a rework. And the second level of incompetence, of course, is in the operation of these power plants. Insofar as nuclear is involved, we know that nuclear skills in this country have fled thanks to the rank corruption and the poor prospects for professionals within ESKOM, who we've seen the bleeding, as I said, of nuclear expertise in this country, which begs the question, who will be operating a new nuclear power plant, obviously this one being built in the Eastern Cape province? Lots of questions that we're being left with here and very little in the way of concrete answers. Worse yet, even when those answers do come, they will be prone to issues because the whole basis of this deal is fraught with problems. Get it out of the hands of government, put it into the hands of the private sector, have them manage this, and we'll see the end of load shedding. Okay, folks, that's it from me this morning as we end off another week here at Vuka Nazo. How are you liking these shows? Please leave in the comments some feedback for me. What would you like me to include perhaps in these? Are you enjoying the amount of time I take? Should they be shorter, maybe a bit longer, or stay as they are? Your feedback is 100% welcome on the show. And of course, find me on my website to do exactly that, www.bigdaddyliberty.com. And of course, guys, I really encourage you to support the show financially. It is your contributions that are helping me create a team that is helping me create this show. From as little as 100 Rand to 150 a month is more than it takes to help me put the show together. With that being said, if you want to find me on any of my social media platforms, all of those details are in the descriptor of this video. With that being said, happy Friday, Shabbat Shalom. I'll see you next week, Monday, on Vuka Nazo.